The Deep End team acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we work and live, pays respect to elders past, present and future, and recognises the importance of Indigenous knowledge to informing public debate. Our guest in this episode of The Deep End is Robbie Bundle. Robbie Bundle is Chief Executive Officer of the Songlines Music Aboriginal Corporation in Melbourne, which produces some of Victoria's largest Indigenous music events and runs a dedicated youth program to nurture tomorrow's Indigenous artists. He has been a musician and songwriter for more than 35 years. He describes his music as eclectic and sings stories of Black Australia with the aim of effecting positive societal change. He has collaborated with many other notable musicians, including Archie Roach, Bart Willoughby, Kutcha Edwards, Dave Arden, Shane Howard, Dave Steele and Neil Murray.
So, Robbie, it's wonderful to have you with us on the Deep End podcast. Robbie Bundle is an Aboriginal elder and a musician, and we're very lucky to have him speaking to us as we record this on Wurundjeri land and Bunurong land in Melbourne at the Ian Potter Centre, which is part of the Melbourne Conservatorium. Robbie, please tell us something about yourself, your life, your loves, what you do.
Thank you for the kind introduction. It's great to be here with both of you. And I think my life, all of the things that I do love is life itself, and my 5 beautiful daughters and our 19 grandchildren. And as a side to that, is music is my love that I like to share and write songs and share it with the wider public and to my friends and to my community and to my mob. I think that's really, really important to do so. And I think to be in this opportunity now at this point in time with the politics that's going on in Australia at the present time. But it's much, much more than that. I think, it lends itself to many open conversations, hopefully, a lot of wisdom being passed on down. And I think something that we've learned along the way in our early years to be able to respond to occasions. But so that's just a short response.
I think you and Marcia are from similar parts of Queensland, aren't you, in terms of background? Is that right?
Well, on my father's, through my father's family. I've got links to Wurrabinda and right up the Gulf and further down to right down the coast to Sydney. Really, it's quite an extensive family, really. And so, I guess we're linked in there somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking the Bidjara connection.
Well, actually, Wurrabinda is where all the Yaman people were taken to in the 1920s in the forced march from the old Taroom Reserve.
Oh. Yes, that's correct.
And my grandfather and his twin brother and their sister ended up there.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's profound, all of that information. I think it's the whole thing that was going on during that time when Joe Bjelke-Petersen was a young man trying to exert his rights, if he had any.
Yeah. So what have you been working on recently, and in particular, I guess, during this year of referendum campaigning?
I think one of the beautiful things, I'm currently the CEO of Songlines Music Aboriginal Corporation, and we develop and do a lot of, working with a lot of First Nations mob and musicians and trying to support however, in whatever form that we can, to facilitate more active spaces for First Nations people to practice their music and to be able to be in a position to either record or to play or perform. So we're based now at Kindred Studios now in Melbourne on the west side of the river in Yarraville. And some of the great things just in recent times, I know this week, which was, and leading up from that, I mean, there's so many things that have been going on, but I think one of the important things, just for me personally, and I just attended the Elders Summit at the Makura
Oh,
in
right.
Albert Park, and I caught up with Auntie Pat, and we were sitting down having a really good conversation about what was what and where things were going, where things were headed, and it was really a great opportunity to be to link up with her again, and in that way to be able to share where things are at and how far they've come since Uluru. So that's been a big thing. So we've just had two amazing projects, musicians for Yes. We've had one at Kendra Studios, where our office is based, and in this space to be able to offer whatever support that we can, and certainly that I can from my own personal opinion, to put onto the music platform.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So, given the experiences you've had and the changes you've seen in the substantial number of decades that you've been on this planet, what are the main things that are motivating you to campaign for a yes vote in this referendum? If you had to...
I think, yeah, thank you. I think, having a conversation with my family and my sister and my wife and friends in general, and my comrades in the musician fraternities, and artists alike, is built on a very simple formula, really, and that's based on goodwill.
Yeah.
And the goodwill coming from my parents, from my mother and my father. I've always been able to say, be mindful of what's going on around you. As you grow older, you're going to learn so much. And I think in the space that I have occupied, I have learned so much in terms of how people react to one another and what they do. And I think, coming out from all the stories from 1967, and when you're growing up, you're trying to hear these stories told from your parents' point of view and how they were feeling at the time. And I know during the whole ministries, there were so many people, only Faith and all of the like, and were putting their commitment and their hearts forward in goodwill, based on goodwill.
So tell us more about the Yes campaign events you have been running. Who were the people who turned up? What were their sorts of reactions? What was the mood like in the room? What conversations did they generate? What's your sense, I guess, from what I'm asking? What's your sense of how people are feeling from your networks heading into this referendum?
The mood, I think, being in the rooms at those events. At the first event was quite amazing, and it's about the responses that they brought, and like there was a comment made by one of them that they bought a song, or they bought songs to actually sing for this special event about a special occasion. And that to me signifies that there's such a willingness based on that goodwill is to move forward to signify the moment and the history, because this is the most historical I think for First Nations Melbourne, for the whole of Australia and the continent to embrace. So the music has really been at the forefront of this, and so the words and the songs are doing the talking. And both events were packed out, and the reverberations from that since the last one was on Sunday, and it was just incredible to hear the responses coming back from people that played at those and the audiences that were there. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, look, I'm actually with you. I think that particularly in times of crisis, Australians are generally good people and will err on the side of doing the right thing,
Yes.
even if they're not entirely sure what the right thing is. And
Yeah.
I think we saw that during the COVID pandemic, where there was
Absolutely.
a huge amount of street level, 5 kilometre radius level in Melbourne generosity going between neighbours who hadn't even necessarily spoken to each other for years, but suddenly were, dropping food at, elderly neighbours' doors and things like that. I do believe in the goodness and generosity
Oh,
of
me too.
people. Yeah. And I do think that, we do have a good chance of seeing that realised on referendum day. That is indeed my hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. And there is that general generosity of people, in the hearts and minds that they just generally care. That's out there that's the norm out there. It's just the way society is with the little side tracks and things like that, and things getting lost in translation, and people just being a little bit lost here and there. But I think, and they're the ones I feel for, and the homeless and everything else that goes with that. But I think all in all, I echo those sentiments. Yep.
Do you mind if I ask this question, Robbie?
Please.
How did you get in? How did you become a musician?
Well, I was surrounded by it all the time with my uncles and aunties, and everywhere I went, it was either played on the mission, at Wallaga Lake Mission, and wherever I went, there was always music around me. So, and they'd we'd be camping out with relatives. My mum and dad were, they'd go to the paddocks, and we'd all be on farmhouse, and there'd be old pianos around and things like that. So. Yeah, and my sister said big fan of guitars. So that in itself, were just lying around. So you picked them up, but you heard it all. And then there was the thing that we went to this place. We grew up in a reedy swamp, just out of Bega, and in an old tin shack, and it was kind of really interesting that we always used to go to this big barn, and there was this amazing element with it, had all stagecoaches and stuff, and during the when it was cold during the winter months, we would be in the big barn, and we were up in the haylofts, and there'd be big fire pits all around, and all the elders and our mum and dads and uncles and aunties were all down there, and they were all singing Christmas carols like Silent Night and things like that, and it was the most amazing times. And because we were right near the Bega River, and that's where a lot of our people camped and things like that, and we lived like that for on and off for a number of years, and so that was my forays into that, and then going to school and just learning how to read and write, and how to get things basically right in your head and what you were hearing as opposed to what your hands were doing. Trying to learn how to play guitar, and then. But generally, just listening. I think that was the key for me.
So you're a natural musician. You didn't learn
No,
formal music. You didn't have a formal music education. You learnt from
no.
your own family environment.
Yeah, it's from my own family environment. Yeah, I didn't learn theory or anything like that. So yeah, you could say that. Yeah, I was just picked it up and just ran with it.
But as a musician myself, look, I observe all the time that, people just generally underestimate the transformative power of music. They underestimate the ability of music to draw people together in intrinsically meaningful and enduring ways.
Yeah.
And, as a musician who, because of all of that, has been underestimated my entire career. I just wondered what you thought about that from a philosophical level. I mean, I think you've given beautiful examples of how that's happening now, but I just wondered what your thinking was around those things.
I just think it's probably one of the most. I think for us, I think we sort of had a bit of a brief conversation about this, but just to let other people know, I think it's really really important. No matter where you are and what your world is made of, there's always something that's going to come up that will inspire you to be able to to write or to to play a bit of music or to construct a space in your head or to find a space in your head and then bring that out into some form of writing and be able to be. And I think just being helps that transition from applying your craft and being really listening. You could listen to so many different genres of music and records and whatnot, but I think primarily, however, there's this really really beautiful notion of once you hear something, then they're little anecdotal things, you'll go, oh, I love that piece. I want to put that over there. And so it's like building a jigsaw puzzle. And once you can be able to do that, then you can create almost anything.
Hmm.
It's like your sound and frequencies and things. I think, I don't know if that answers it, but that was coming out of my mouth. So.
No, no, that's fine. Absolutely fine. No, I'm very interested in this because look, I did a PhD on
Yes,
the music that came out of Arnhem Land in the
yes. How
1980s,
exciting, yes.
that effectively shaped the way that most Australians of my generation experienced the early political developments of the early 1990s in Indigenous
Yes.
affairs, like the
Hmm.
Mabo decision, like the Redfern Address, like the
Yeah.
Native Title Act. And a lot of that was, mediated by, you know, a few core bands from Arnhem Land, as well as, musicians like, Paul Kelly, who you mentioned before, and things like that. But
Yeah.
Midnight Oil. And so, I'm keenly aware of how, something as seemingly simple and innocuous and slippery as a song can have the power to radically transform the way that people think en masse about certain issues. And particularly where issues such as the one we're facing now with the voice referendum are
Yeah.
way above mere politics. They are
Absolutely.
at their core human
Yeah.
rights issues that we should all be doing the right thing for. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And you look at, Yothu Yindi and, I was interviewing those guys and the Soundbox here last year at the Art Centre
Oh, great. Yeah.
and Mariana. Yeah, it was an incredible conversation. And old mate, you know, when he came down in the early 80s to, down to Deakin, I was down there at the time in Geelong, and there was this incredible, mixed in. We sit in the back veranda of one of the professor's place, and just playing, jamming, and things, and then the family notion. They bring their family around to stay at our place. It was really great to be able to be in that position at that time, not knowing what was coming, but we kind of had an inkling, but we didn't know quite for sure what was coming. And then we separate for a long time. We go our different directions, and next minute I hear it on the radio. There it is, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So, and that, how important was that moment? Like, wow. And so, and again, with all of the great protest songs, No Fixed Address, Us Mob, Coloured Stone, Warumpi Band, and there's so many out there, but they cut a swath through, you know, the thick underbelly of society, that was really out there permeating and twisting and turning and trying to, find and place and strategically place Aboriginal people into a place where we didn't want to be placed. And it was just, so they were able to, and hard times, local Fitzroy band and Mop Top and Dropouts and all those, and they were able to tell stories through their songs, and this is something I think I'm going to be touching on as time goes on, just to be able to tell the story. We're writing up a big documentary now with Songlines Music with Richard Jamison.
Oh, great.
We're in films, yeah. So it's going to be like a feature film documentary type thing, talking about the history of music in from Songlines' point of view. And so
Brilliant.
we're doing a lot of different things happening there in that space. But I think I think you touched on it there. It's like it's how that motivates you as a person with your family and your friends and your relations and your relatives and your mob in general to be able to be moving forward in the space from eons old cultural knowledge through the songlines to be able to get to a point and say, well, this is just the beginning, really.
Mm.
And we've got a long way to go. We're kind of a little bit away through it, but we've kind of got a long way to go through the generations now, even though that seems like a long time, because we're getting used to the whole, the modern world of modality at its finest, really. And we become good at it and adaptable and to be reasonable and interchangeable. I think that's what's held us in good stead to be this far down the track now. And I think the referendum coming up with the yes vote is an absolute incredible game changer on so many levels. And just to have that little space in that little corner over there will just be the right, tonic, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, I can't remember who said this, but you can't kill an idea.
No,
And
definitely not.
And I've always thought of songs in particular as being the world's first viral medium.
Absolutely.
I guess other than actual viruses. But yeah, I mean, in terms of human media,
Yeah.
I've always thought
Absolutely.
of songs being, the first viral medium, and it's a beautiful approach.
Well, it is. It's like the first sound, the first light utterances.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, look, we're heading to time very rapidly and sadly, and we'd love to talk to you again about
Sure.
more things on the program post-referendum in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
But the final question is that to people who are genuinely undecided about how they're going to vote in this referendum on the 14th of October, what would you say to them as they head to the polling booths?
Just have an open mind, I think, and put yourself in that position and free yourself up of the burden that you carry, because that's part of the indoctrination of everything that we go through in life. And I think, and it's easier said than done, but I think by and large there exists this really beautiful goodwill that surrounds every living soul. And it's in every living soul. And I think if that's born out of that beauty to identify certain needs, so their character is based on the decisions that they make now. And if those decisions is building their character to be upstanding and outstanding people in their communities and as citizens and citizens of the world, then, it's going to be a mad rush, but I think we'll get there.
They are very beautiful words, Robbie. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Aaron and Marcia. It was a pleasure to be with you both.
Thank you, Robbie. Very much appreciated. It's a real pleasure to talk to you and to listen to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care.